In this demo, I want to go ahead and take a look at how hyperlinks actually work within HTML. That's going to include how do we link out to new tabs, what's the default behavior of hyperlinks, how do we link to internal files versus external files. That's also going to include a discussion on relative paths versus absolute paths. Okay, and then a lot of these same concepts are going to apply to our images, so we'll also cover images in this video. So to start with, I'm going to start with an HTML page. So right now you can see that I have plain text. I want to have the correct directory structure for my project, so I'm going to open up a Finder window, just heading out to my desktop, and I'm going to create a new folder called Links and Images. And then within the Links and Images folder, so I have the Links and Images folder here. I can go ahead and add a couple of subdirectories or folders. So I can have Images folder, I can have Web Pages folder, and then I can have a Style Sheets folder. Okay, so I have those three folders. And then this page that I'm dealing with right now, I want to go ahead and save this as an HTML file. So just on my desktop, Links and Images, Web Pages, and I'm going to call this index.html. Okay, so this is my index.html file, and again, going back to previous screencasts, because I'm using an editor that has IntelliSense built in, I can use some of the templates that are built in to give me a starting point. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to have an HTML template. So I type in HTML. I can see that autocomplete is available, so I'm going to hit enter. And then I get my HTML template. Okay, so for the title of this, I'm going to title this Demo Links. And what I want to do is I want to have a structure for my HTML to kind of describe this. So in order to do that, I'm going to have a header. And then I want to have inside my header a heading tag. So here's an H1 tag, demo of different links, closing H1. And then I want to have my navigation structure. So these are going to be hyperlinks out to different pages. So I'm going to have a nav control. And then the nav control, I want to style with a list. So I'm going to have an unordered list with different list items in it. And let's go ahead and just set up a few blank list items here. And these list items are going to be to different pages that exist either within my site or out on the internet. Okay, so the first one, what I want to do is I want to link to a different page within my site. So I'm going to go ahead and have like a Contact Us page. So here's my Contact Us. I'm going to have another link out to W3 Schools. So on W3 Schools, there's content describing, different types of HTML links. So I'm going to go ahead and have a reference to the links on W3 Schools. And then I might have another link. So this is going to be a local URL. This is going to be a internet URL. And then the third type of link that I want to deal with is what's known as a target link. And what that is more like a bookmark. So I'm going to have a bookmark on the current page. Okay, and what I mean by that bookmark, I think most of us are pretty familiar with linking to other pages within a site. So if I'm on Amazon's website, I might click on the electronics, or I might click on my shopping cart. Those are going to be different pages within the Amazon website. The internet URLs are just that. There are links out to external pages. So in our example, we're going to link out to W3 Schools. And then this bookmark on a current page, maybe my site is a single page application, and maybe it's a news feed or something like that, and there's a bunch of articles and the page scrolls down. So what this is really a bookmark within that current page to jump to a specific section of the page. And I'll show you how those work in this screencast. Okay, so let's deal with our Contact Us page first, because I think this is the easiest. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. So right now we have our header. We're going to have the main section of our site. And then eventually we should have our footer. Okay, so we talked about how we organize a web page. Now we're getting into that. Right now we just have our header, and that's really where I want to focus on. Our main might include different articles, different sections, things like that. But we have our basic web page layout that we want. So what I want to do is I want to open this up in a browser. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Atom Live server. I'm going to start that up. And I'm going to get rid of my bookmarks. And then here's what our current page looks like right now. Okay, so it shows the different links. It shows, our unordered list the way we want it to. And what I want to do is I want to style that unordered list. Okay, so I'm going to style that unordered list. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to add an external style sheet. So right now our project is just the web pages. I really don't want that to be my project, so I'm going to remove that project folder. And I'm going to add a different project folder, which includes everything. So the desktop, links and images. So there's everything. I want to add a style sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new file called master.css. And inside of here, I want to style my navigation links, or my navigation list. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to reference that style sheet. So I'm going to link out to my style sheet. And the style sheet reference is I have to go up a directory from my current working directory, and then I'm going to go into the CSS, and I'm looking at that master.css file. So there's the link that I need. And then what I want to do is I want to style this unordered list right here inside the nav bar. I want to style it so that the list items in this list are arranged horizontally as opposed to vertically. So right now the list is arranged vertically, and that's the way that will work for unordered lists. But I do have the option of changing the list style so that it can so that that list style can be horizontally arranged. In order to do that, I have to select this unordered list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this unordered list an ID. So I'm going to set up an ID attribute, and I'm going to call it my navigation list. Okay, so that's how I'm identifying this unordered list. Over in my style sheet, I can then take that navigation list and I can apply a style rule to it. Okay, so the style rule that I want to apply to it, and usually my rule of thumb as we're getting started is let's make sure that this styling rule actually applies to my list. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the background to red. Okay, so now I go back over to my browser, and why are we not seeing that? And I think we're running into issues there because of the way this Atom Live server was started. So I'm going to go ahead and start the Atom Live server again. We should be in web pages, and you'll notice that it's still not working. And that's interesting to me. So navigation list, navigation list. I'm selecting the navigation list by ID. changing the background to red. And I'm going to show you a cool debugging tool. So I'm going to kind of debug this in place. I think this background for my navigation list should be red. I'm going to go ahead and inspect this. And what I want to do is I want to actually look at my network performance. So I want to make sure that all of the resources are getting loaded. And you'll notice that it didn't grab my master.css file. And I just want to see what's going on there. And I can see the problem now. The reason it's not finding that file is because I said it was going to be in a CSS directory, and it's not in a CSS directory, it's in a style sheets directory. So it wasn't finding my CSS file, and I knew that because this master.css file in my developer tools was showing up as red. Okay, so this is a debugging tool that's built into browsers, and it allows you to see the network traffic to make sure that all of the things are working properly, and that's how I identified that the style sheet wasn't linked properly. Okay, so now you can see the background's red. What I want to do is I want to change the orientation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this so that the list style type is none. And then I want to display a few different things. So I want to change this navigation list so that the list style type is set to none. Okay, and now we'll notice that you'll notice there's no bullets there. And then what I have to do is I have to display all my list items as block elements. And actually, I want to change my navigation list LIs to be inline block. And we had talked about inline versus block elements before. And now you'll notice that now we're horizontally arranged as opposed to vertically arranged. So by default, those list items are block elements, and that's why we get that word wrap and that color change. But now we've made them inline blocks. Now I can decide, like, how do I actually want to lay this out? So one way I could lay that out is I could actually give a width to each of these. So I might say each of them are going to be 20% of the screen. And then I might also text align the navigation list to be center aligned so that my links are center aligned on the page. Okay, and each one of them is going to take up 20%, and then they're also left justified if I was going to put a border around each of these list items. But there's my navigation bar currently. Okay, next, what I want to do is I actually want to make these hyperlinks so that they're linking to a page within my site. So we kind of started that discussion, and really this is the gist of this screencast. So it's taken a while to get into this, but this is the setup. So now we have our navigation bar, and the navigation bar is going to allow us to link out to different pages, whether they're local or on the internet or whatever. So now I want to make these hyperlinks. The structure of a hyperlink is going to take the shape of, I'm creating an A tag, and within the A tag is the text that I want the user to see. Okay, so that's fairly straightforward. So this is the text that the user will actually be presented with on the screen, is the text that's inside the A tag. In order for this to work, my A tag has to have an Href attribute. The Href attribute identifies where I should go when I actually click on that hyperlink. Okay, so right now I'm just going to leave it blank, but you'll notice what it shows up as is now it's a clickable link. So now it's a hyperlink, it's an anchor tag, and it's not linking to any particular URL. Okay, so what I want to do is I want it to link to a page within my site. Okay, so here's going to be just a dummy page. It's going to be a contact us page. So I'm going to call this contactus.html. And since it's an HTML page, I have this HTML templating built in. And I'm just going to set the title to contact us. And in big capital letters, I'm going to say that this page is under construction. Okay, so this is just a really simple page. I have the title of the page, and then I'm saying it's under construction. And now what that does is it allows me to link out to that page. So since I'm in index.html and I want to link to a page that's in the same directory, I can just say that you should go to that page that exists within the same directory. Okay, and now what that'll do is if I refresh the page, now when I click on this link, you can see down in the status bar at the bottom of the screen that it's going to take me to a new page. Okay, so it takes me to this under construction page, and I can navigate back. Okay, so this will take me to a local URL. Okay, so I want to recreate that, so I'm just going to cheat a little bit here. I'm going to copy and paste this list item. So I have it twice. It's duplicated, so now you'll see this contact us URL, and both of them will link to the same page. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to show you a different thing that I can do with these anchor tags. Every anchor tag, so I'm going to do this on the second anchor tag, I can set a target attribute, and the target attribute allows me to specify whether I want to go to a new blank page, if I want to just replace the current page using the self, and then the top and the parent have to do with frame, so I'm going to ignore them for now. So the two target attributes that we care about are blank and self. So if I use self, this is the default behavior. Okay, so now we're looking at the second hyperlink. So the first one doesn't have a target, the second one does. Because I set the target to self, it works the exact same way. That's the default behavior, is I'll just link out to myself, and it replaces the demo links URL in the current tab. Okay, so no change. If I change this to blank, okay, so now the second hyperlink is a little bit different. What it does is it opens up a new tab. So it opens that destination in a new tab. So the default behavior, if I don't specify a target, is that the target is going to be underscore self. If I want the target to open up in a new tab, then I'm going to have this underscore blank. Okay, so a good use case for this might be, I don't want you to leave my site, I want you to stay on my site, but I'm going to provide a reference out to an external URL, like in our next example where we're going to link to W3 Schools. So I don't want you to leave my site, but I want to provide a reference to some external site. I might use that target attribute to say, hey, I want you to stay, I want the current tab to stay where it is, but I also want you to be able to navigate out to this external URL. So I'm going to open that in a new tab for you. Okay, so not necessarily a great use case for local URLs, so I'm going to get rid of this, but I am going to use that concept here when I link out to W3 Schools. Okay, so the URL for W3 Schools I'm going to provide for you right now. It's going to be some anchor tag, so I'm putting my anchor tag around. So there's my anchor tag, and then this href attribute is going to be out to W3 Schools. And I have to spell it correctly. So w3schools.com, it's the HTML course, and then there's a URL called html_links.asp. Okay, so I just want to show you how this works as is. So we have our href, we're not setting a target at this point. I go ahead and save it, we head out to the browser window, And now you'll notice that when I click on that link, it takes me out to W3 Schools. I have all the information about hyperlinks, and you see the example where I have an anchor tag with an href and some link text. However, I want to have you keep focusing on these hyperlinks, and the way I'm going to have you do that is I want my external URL to open up in a new browser window or a new browser tab. So in order to do that, I'm going to set a target attribute here on my anchor tag. So my target attribute is going to be _blank. Okay, because that's the case now, I'll keep my local site open, and now you'll notice that I'm able to link out to that external URL and not have a problem there. Okay? So this is a great use case for that target. Usually I don't have to set a target. By default it's going to be self, but in this case I'm setting a target and I can use that target. Okay, so the last example that I wanted to focus on for hyperlinks was I wanted to have a couple of different articles. So for instance, I might have a couple of different sections of a newspaper. So for instance, this might be the sports section, and then I might have the politics, and then I might have entertainment. Okay, and then you can imagine all the different types of newspaper sections, and then I might have articles within. And I might want to style them. So I'm going to have a class attribute for each sports article. I might have political articles. I might have entertainment articles. Okay, so the idea here is that I can fill in a bunch of content. Okay, and just to point out a quick note with this, there was a question that came up about, do I have articles within sections or sections within articles? And the honest answer is it could go either way. So an article might have multiple sections to the article, like, you know, here's the beginning, here's the main content, and here's the conclusion. Or like I'm doing right here, I might have different sections that contain many articles. So either way is actually okay. And then I could even go further. I could have a section called sports. I could have an article in the sports section, and then that article could have multiple sections to it. Okay, so lots of different ways we could go there. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's just more for your organization. Okay, so you want to organize this in some kind of logical way. Okay, so no right or wrong answer there to kind of clarify that point. What I want to do is I'm going to just create some dummy content here. So in order to create some dummy content, I'm just going to use some HR tags. And then in the politics, I might go ahead and have a paragraph tag with some dummy text. So if I want to fill this out with dummy text, I'm just going to skip out to a browser. And the way I get dummy text is I search for lorem ipsum. And what that is filler text. Okay, so you'll see these lorem ipsum generators. And what it does is it generates dummy text. Okay, so I'm just going to take this dummy text and put it into my paragraph. And then you'll notice that I don't have word wrapping on, so there's a bunch of characters there that I just pasted in. If I go to the View menu, there's the option to toggle soft wrap, so I can actually see that paragraph of text. Okay, and then finally I get down to my entertainment section, and we can, you know, have entertainment news, right? So maybe I don't really follow too much entertainment news, but let's say, you know, there's something about Kim Kardashian. Okay, who knows? So I have all of that in my site, and if I skip back over to my page, and it looks like we're not really scrolling all that much, so I want some more lorem ipsum text. I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to go back over to that lorem ipsum generator. And the reason I'm doing this is I really want to make sure that you can see what's going on with this hyperlink that I'm going to set up. So I just grabbed some for my sports article, and some more for my next sports article, some more for my next sports article, some more for my politics, so maybe a second paragraph. Okay, so just filled in some content, and the reason I filled in some content, now you'll see that things get broken up a little bit. And what I want to do is when I click on my bookmark that's on my current page, I want to link you down to the entertainment news. Okay, so specifically we're talking about entertainment. Okay, so I'm going to set up an anchor tag around this. And then I need an Href attribute. So my Href attribute, what it's really going to be is I'm linking to some internal location. And the way I'm going to specify that is I'm going to link out to my entertainment. So I have an ID on the page called entertainment, and then I'm linking to that element that has that ID using this href syntax. Okay, so now if I go back over to my browser, I refresh the page, so I have a bookmark on the current page. What you'll notice is when I click on this, it jumps me down to Kim Kardashian, and that's where that entertainment section is. So I can have that local bookmark to any element that has an ID on my page. Okay, and it's going to jump me down to that local element. Okay, so in this case, it's jumping me down to this section for entertainment. Okay, and you'll notice there's not much afterwards. So all it did is it took that entertainment section to the bottom of the page. If there was additional content, this Kim Kardashian header would have ended up showing up on top so that it actually renders out that content that has that specific ID. So this is more like a bookmark within a current page. Okay. So really these are the three main types of hyperlinks. So we could have a link to a local URL within our site. And again, that can get more complicated, right? So I might have to navigate around with different relative paths, but I just name the file. Alternatively, I could be referencing an external URL. So I have the href out to this external URL. I may or may not use this target. So maybe I want the user to leave and go visit some other page, or maybe I just want to use that other page as a reference. So I open it in a new tab using the target attribute equal to _blank. I should have mentioned this. There are multiple target attributes, so there's 4 different target attributes that you could use. The only ones that we're going to use for this class are self and blank. And then the other point of clarification I should make on that is we don't need to use the target equal to _self because that's the default behavior. Okay, so the only target attribute that we'll ever use is this target equals _blank to open that new tab. Otherwise, we're just going to let the default behavior happen, and it's going to work the way you expect. Okay, and then lastly, we have a hyperlink that's linking to more like a bookmark on the current page. So it's a local reference, and it jumps down to an element that has a specific ID on that current page. So it's a bookmark on the current page. So those are the main 3 types of hyperlinks that we're going to see. There's also a few things that you can do. So if we go down to the bottom, and let's say we put a footer in. There's specific types of hyperlinks that you could use. So with our footer, I like to think of these as special hyperlinks. So I'm going to go ahead and have an unordered list, and then a list item. And the special types of hyperlinks are going to be for your email and for your phone number. So I'm going to go ahead and have an anchor tag. My href is actually going to be mail to, and then my email address. And then still text, email instructor. And then the other type of special hyperlink that we might have is going to be a phone hyperlink. So again, I'm going to have an href, but my href is going to be my phone number. So it's going to be 608-246-6599. Call instructor. Okay, and then we have our list at the bottom of the page. I have an email, which will open up email application if it's linked in the browser, and then the call will actually allow me to call. You'll see it's trying to open FaceTime because that's my associated application to make phone calls on my Mac. If I try to email, it's going to open up the mail application. So it actually opens up Gmail for me. That's not exactly what I wanted, but I shouldn't say that's not exactly what I wanted. I don't necessarily want to bring up my Gmail inbox. So you'll notice that it actually didn't do that. It just opened up a Gmail window to send a new message to the mail to link within the browser window. Okay, and I was thinking it would open up my mailbox, and I didn't want that necessarily to happen. Okay, so these are two special types of hyperlinks that you might encounter. They work great. You've probably seen them before if you ever wanted to contact like a support. So you have a contact us page. You have different hyperlinks to contact via email or contact via phone. These are special types of hyperlinks. You're going to prefix them with the mail to colon or the telephone colon in order to use those different special hyperlinks. Okay, and that's going to be in our footer. Okay, so regarding hyperlinks, just to recap, we're going to have anchor tags, beginning and ending A tags. The text that's inside the A tag is what gets displayed to your users. The href is where the user is going to get linked to after they click on your hyperlink. Okay, and that could be an internal URL, it can be an external URL, or it can be a bookmark on the current page. Okay, and then there are two exceptions to that. So I could set up a special hyperlink to email someone or to generate a phone call to someone. Okay, so there's two special cases, but for the most part, we're linking to web pages. And then the other attribute that we care about, besides the href, is this target attribute. And the target attribute, I'll be honest with you, 98% of the time, so almost always, the target attribute, the only time I use it is if I want it to open a new blank page or a new blank tab. So otherwise, I avoid using that target attribute altogether, and things just work with my hyperlinks. Okay? So those are the main focus of hyperlinks. The paths. So I'm going to save the paths, whether we're using relative or absolute paths, for a different time, and then we can cover those kind of throughout the course. Okay, so if you have questions on paths or relative paths or absolute paths, a couple of rules of thumb is if you're going to be using paths, you should not have drive letters. We've already talked about that. You should never have a drive letter. Alternatively, I mentioned that you shouldn't have the /, and the / is really going to mean relative to the root. So relative to the root on a Unix operating system means one thing. On the web, it means a different thing. So what this means is relative to the root of the website, there should be a file called contactus.html. Sometimes that works okay, sometimes it doesn't. But for now, don't worry too much about that /. I would say avoid that / for the time being. So if we're talking about paths, we really want to be using relative paths. And the way we know that is we're not using drive letters and we're not using / to start our paths. Okay, so for this screencast, just hyperlinks. Okay, and a little bit on the navigation. If you were confused from your exercise or anything like that, hopefully this fills in a few of those gaps. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this screencast.